Welcome to Sacred Reveries. I'm Jess DuBose.
And I'm Zarina Zertuche. And today we're talking about what is God? Talk about a small topic. No,
Yeah, a
just
very small,
light and breezy, right?
so light and breezy. What is God? That's such a ominous thing, but also we were talking about this before the episode. I think the question in of itself can sound heretical depending on who's listening. Like what? Like, isn't God a person? Isn't like the reverence of God needs to who? Like, but what are we even talking about? What is God? Do you have an answer to that question, Zarina?
I have a lot of answers and no answer. Like to me, the truest thing anybody can say about God is that it is an all-powerful mystery. Like it is this potent, like intrinsic energy, existence, being, right? But none of us really could say for sure, right? We all speculate, everybody's kind of got their theory, but nobody's actually, with their two eyes, seen a thing that has said to them audibly, right? In the world, oh, like I am God and here's how I can show you that that's who I am. Right? We have like intuition, people have different connections, but I feel like we don't have that answer 100% until we cross, right? Until like I have the opportunity to be a soul out of a body and feel and see God in a real way. At least that's my hope, you know? Who
Mm.
knows? I get to the other side and be like, damn, I still don't get to know. Like I have no idea. But that's my hope, you know? And I feel like many people who believe in God, like I feel like I can feel God. Like I feel like I see God in things happening in the world and I have my own, belief and perspective on it. But the truest thing that I can say about God is that God is a mystery.
Mm.
What would you say?
It's God. I would answer that question very differently at very different points in my life. Um,
Take us through the journey.
I, I grew up in the church. I remember sitting in Sunday school at church, asking Jesus into my heart when I was 5 years old. Like, I remember it. And it was a spiritual moment for me, even though I have had so many conversations about whether or not it's possible for someone even that young to experience God. Because in the church, there's all these kinds of crazy ideas of who God is, anyways, and whether or not children actually understand what we're talking about. But I remember it being like a very spiritual experience. And while the the way that I would have defined God when I was a kid and even in college, because I went to a Christian college, is not the same as what I would call it now. There's still this through line of like what you were saying, like a mystery is totally true, but it's also like deep connection. Um, yeah, like super deep connection. Like this deep connection to everything and everyone and every being. Like it's really difficult to describe. I feel like our words and language have so much they don't they don't have the breath to express it. Um, especially because our
Yeah.
what?
Well, I just said, yeah, it holds us back. I think the language holds us back because it can't, The language is built on intellectual concepts. And if we can't put God into a concept and describe him, how is the language supposed to do that in a fully accurate and satisfied way? You know, we get close, I think, but anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, that's exactly what I was gonna say, but you pulled the words, so thank you. Because I was struggling to find the words. But yes, like it's this. I also like, growing up in the church, there's this very specific concept that God is a he, him, masculine, and then there's like the Old Testament God versus the New Testament God. Like Old Testament, like somehow they're different. Like they talk about it in church, like he's different in the Old Testament versus the New Testament, but we're supposed to think that he's the same and never changes. It's very confusing.
Even though there's different names, right? There's different names given to God in the Old Testament that are given to God in the New Testament. And the like overarching like Elohim is actually a plural word, not a singular word. There's all these like interesting things underneath the thing that's happening, right? So I mean, I don't have all those answers. I wish that I had already studied like the originals, the Greek and the Aramaic and the Hebrew, like the original languages of the Bible in its original form more deeply than I have. And I would still like to, but I think even just from that one sacred text, like not talking about all these other religions, just that one text, I think there's already enough there for me, at least, to say to myself, I'm not even sure we really know in this context, right? Like that I can really answer that. So,
Yeah, and we've only even touched on Christianity from at least the beginning of this podcast so far, but then you have Buddhism and Hinduism and mythology and like there's so many things that describe what is indescribable.
yeah.
We're trying, like I feel like that's a lot of like when people I feel like every single person has their own perspective and um relationship to what this God thing is, but everyone is trying to put words to a thing that is a mystery and is indescribable. So whether you say the word God or spirit or universe or Allah or I even sometimes use the word Atahalin, which is from Frozen, because I think it's fun and I like that movie. No matter what word, it's pretty much it's all the same thing and also not at the same time.
And also not, right? And so I guess like for me, my belief in God is the thread that goes through all those things. Like the thing that is consistent across all those things is the thing that I feel like is God for me. You know, like, I mean, I like to talk about these kind of things. So I will often ask somebody, like, well, do you believe in God? And often I will get the answer no, you know, and then I will say, well, do you believe in something bigger than yourself? Right. And they'll say yes. I think people can be non-religious and not pick a box for God, you know, whatever their religious religion tends to be is kind of like this frame we're putting around this concept of God and a relationship with God. And they can still be connected. Like they can still reach God. The thing that is God is the omnipresent, right? This like omnipotent, right? Like thing that is a part of who God is. And for me, I'm like, yeah, because I can sit with a bee on a flower and feel like I'm with God. And I can lay in the grass and feel like I'm with God. And I can stand in the rain and feel like I'm with God. And I can walk into the church and kneel at the altar and feel like I'm with God. And I can sing with the Baptists and the Protestants and feel like I'm with God. And I can stand next to the evangelicals who are speaking in tongues and I feel like I'm with God because God is intrinsically there in all the places. My God, I love and believe in, is there in all the places.
Yeah. So some of the most God potent moments are so interesting to me because some of them are the like typical of what somebody in the church would describe, where like when I was in college, I went to a Christian college and we had this thing called Celebration. It was on every other Friday and it was a student-led worship service. So there was lots of music and there was a speaker, but we were in a room without chairs. So I would just be lying on the ground, like in this state of like worship, um, just so present to God and like connected to the earth and everybody around me. And it was really magical. But then I've also had that same feeling, and this is so beautiful to me, and also it feels humorous to me because I also believe that God is humorous.
Totally. Totally.
When I was
That sounds
living,
like a little kid. Yeah, I felt that.
when I was, I lived in South Korea for a year teaching English, and this was a time where I was not going to church and I was very like anti-church, not anti-God per se, because I always like that magical experience that I had as a 5-year-old was like could never God revealed himself to me so much over my life. I can't deny God's existence, even if I was struggling with the religion and other things that were happening at the time. I had gone through a divorce, like is a lot of stuff. So I was like sort of dating this guy, and I was sitting in his apartment, no clothes on. I picked up his guitar and started playing a worship song, and it was this very epic moment for both of us. Like God was so present in the room as I was like post-coital nakedness, playing guitar and singing a worship song to someone I was not married to, never intended to marry. Like it was so beautiful and profound.
1,000%. 1,000%. And I know that there could and would be pushback, right, about that, considering like what you were doing, where you were, the quote unquote sins you had just committed, right? Like, and this is why I will often say, like, I call myself Christian, but I don't know if all the Christians would call me Christian. But to me, that moment is less important. Like the idea of you having sinned or not sinned is less important than the moment you felt God in connection, right? Like to me, that's the thing that is really special, And I think when you felt that, you don't forget it. You know what that feels like forever. And I've said for a long time, like, my only hope is that more people feel God the way I feel him, where it's like visceral and it's so real that you can't ignore it. Like you can't brush it off, right? Somebody can't tell me like it's neurological adaptation, right? Like it is multidimensional, real, right? Like physically visceral, emotionally visceral, like spiritually visceral, mentally visceral, like it's there, and I think that part of universe, right? Like God in the universe wants to reach us so badly. Like I'm making him a person now, but like I think there's this intrinsic want to have everything connected, right? And so that would mean reaching us, that if you're looking, you'll find it, right? Like how many stories are there of people crying out, never believed in God, were atheists, don't know God, and then all of a sudden they're like, I don't know what you are, but show me what's true, right? and then they have an experience and they, you know, are different. They're different all of a sudden, and they don't go back. And it's like, you can't tell me I didn't feel what I feel because it was that real. It was that visceral. Right. And that is the thing you can't teach. I can't give that to you by giving you a scripture. Like, that's something you have to want to feel and be open to on some level. Right. And maybe when you read the scripture, a moment will happen and something will click and you will feel God, but it's not like say 10 Hail Marys, like walk 2 miles, like, wake up at 5 in the morning and you're gonna all of a sudden feel God. It's not like that, right? And the only flow through, and I would love like what you think it might be, but the only flow through I can come to is this openness or this desire to want to know and understand. And then that's why you're able to have an experience of God that is different.
Mm.
You know? Because why does it happen sometimes and it doesn't happen all the time? I don't know.
Right. Because I'm like, I feel like whether people are conscious or not of it, I think almost everyone is reaching for that. Because, like you said, there are moments where people are crying out to God, like, show me. I want to believe. But then there's people who, in like, I hear famous people talking all the time about doing ayahuasca, and all of a sudden they're very different. That's
Mm-hmm.
connected to something greater than themselves, and that is not something they would have attributed to God or anything before, but now they do. And so like everybody's experience is so different. And I guess like, I mean, then the whole other conversation that we'll probably have at some point is talking about um different past lives, or like before you came here, what you decided you wanted to experience while you were here. And maybe some
Mm-hmm.
people doesn't don't they chose to come because they wanted to experience the separateness of the one, and so that's why they're not connected. I don't know.
Okay, so controversial take maybe, but I think we all came to experience what it's like to be separate.
Yes.
And the um, underlying goal for everyone is to understand that we are not separate and that there is an interconnectedness always from through everyone and everything. Like scientifically, we're getting closer and closer to proving all of these things, right? The interconnectedness, which I think will be really helpful for people to have something concrete to look at. But part of the connected circle for me is God. Now, I also think we come and give ourselves obstacles to learn things, right? To be able to develop particular, like I believe I picked my parents, good, bad, indifferent, like they were the people. I picked them and I wanted all the crazy, right? Because when you're a bliss bunny and just a soul, like there's no pain, there's no sadness, there's none of the things. Like if I was with God before I came here, then like part of coming here is to experience the thing you can't experience when you're just in pure love, when you're just in pure grace, right? And so to me, like we are finding our way back always, and we are learning what it means to have the separation, how that affects the dynamic, right? And so in trying to solve the difficulty that has been given is how we come back to the original thing. Now, not everybody makes it there, right? But I think about it like, oh, it's so sad they didn't make it there. No, I think about it more like um I tried to piece all the puzzles together, right? I tried to arrange all the pieces of a puzzle, but I couldn't figure it out and I ran out of time. So I'm hitting restart on the game, coming back, and I'm going to try again. Right. Like, would I love for them to see it? Yes. Like, I want all to see it. I want them all to feel it. I want them all to get it. Right. Like when you have some like inside information, at least for me, because I'm an info nerd, right? Like when I have this cool information I just found out, like I want to share it with people, like I want you to feel that thing that I think is like so cool and magical, right? And to your point, like some people it's ayahuasca and some people don't require the ayahuasca. And I think some of that is based on the layers, of filters we already have. Like there's been times in my life where I didn't need to wake up and pray to walk out my door and see God and everything in front of me. I just was naturally in that position and I could just was already so connected and I could just feel it. And then there's other times in my life where it is very important based on whatever was happening that I get up and I meditate and I pray and I set an intention for the day so that I can walk out my door and see God everywhere easily without effort, right? And so I think like, oh, okay, well then there's people who, may not have felt it and in moments it's, easier. Like they're in a place where the ayahuasca is what shows them where I walk in, and the flower I see on the way into the door for the ayahuasca, I'm like, oh, there's God, right? But they walked right past it. It's not, and maybe when they walk out after they've already met God, they're like, oh, there's God too, So that's why I go back to like the openness and the desire, because maybe the ayahuasca is like removing filters for you not to even like realize it's something you want to desire. Like you don't even realize like the possibility of being open, right? Where other people are not so it doesn't exist. They're more like, I'm not sure. And then something can happen and then maybe it doesn't need to be an ayahuasca ceremony. But I always wonder like where are the barriers?
Um, since we're like in the space of defining things, you were mentioning um meditation and prayer. How would you define meditation and prayer for yourself and as a whole?
So I know everybody has a lot of definitions for meditation, and it can look very different for different people. For me, meditation is a quiet space. So meditation is like taking the environment and softening it so that there's open space for um, awareness to happen, right? So I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not putting energy into anything. It's like the epitome of just being. We walk around all the time and it's like, "Oh, I just want to be like, I don't want to have to do, I don't have to chase, I don't want to have to complete, I don't want a to-do list. Like, I just want to be like, it is that moment for me to just be. Where prayer is more active for me, it's more intentional. I am saying a thing, I'm commanding a thing, I'm demanding a thing. I want my day to look like this, right? Like I want um uh I want like positive energy to be sent towards a particular thing. Like I want to wrap somebody um in healing energy or pray for them to be like, for instance, like my mom had surgery yesterday, right? So one of my prayers is that for her body, that her body will recover, that all of the things that she needs will come to her awareness or my awareness, right? So that we can be supportive of her in the best way possible. Like I pray for the people who are working on her and who are helping her recover, that they're like have clear minds and clear hearts and they can see all the things without bias or judgment. And like, so I'm holding intentions for these people, right? To all positive, all to benefit everybody, right? Nothing that is like would be against personal will, so to speak, right? To me, that's not prayer. That starts to go into like a different direction. But yeah, so for me, prayer is intentional and meditation is more like open space.
Mm.
Would you describe it that way, or what is it for you?
Um, so I basically don't resonate with either word, but I would say that I probably do both. Um, Meditation for me is like staring. I stare a lot out the window, at the wall, but it is that epitome of being. So I'm not trying to remove all of the thoughts. I'm not trying to like
But are you
orchestrate.
having thoughts while you stare?
Yes, but I'm not trying to control them either. So
Hmm.
like they'll be floating by and sometimes it gets to like an epiphany and turns into a download. Sometimes it's just like letting them exist because I can't not think. Like that's just I don't know how to not think. I don't know if that's possible. It might be if I actually practice meditating. Maybe it would, but it's also not something I desire either. So, but it's like a release of control of it because I'm not trying to do anything. I'm not like journaling. I'm not singing. I'm not, sometimes I'll focus on my breath a little bit to get into that space. But it's just a like you said, a beingness of like, oh, I'm just here, I'm just staring. Sometimes it helps walking and the movement helps me in that same capacity because I'm like needing to be, but I also really need my body to move. Um, I feel like it gives me the same openness that you were referring to. Uh, and then prayer was a really interesting one for me because I feel like I'm being guided towards praying again. Because I used to pray all the time, right? When I was a Christian, I prayed all the time. Like anytime I journaled, I like would write it to God or Abba. And I would just pray through writing. Um, I would pray out loud for people, with people often. Um, and it was like really powerful and spiritual. Like God was there. God was with us when that was happening. And I stopped doing it. Um, but I can feel the like urge to get back into that. But I also feel my resistance to it because of the association I have of the church. And so maybe for me, I just get to call it something different and that might alleviate the resistance that I'm feeling. I don't know. I'm in real time processing this with you.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for letting us in. Um, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So why did you stop originally?
I'm like, when did I stop is where I'm trying to start so that I could figure out why. Um, I was really hurt by the church, people of Christianity in some really fucked up ways. And I think the there was a bunch of those things that happened almost sequentially and then I got divorced on top of that and I was like, what the fuck, God? I did everything I was supposed to do and all of it fell apart. What's the fucking point? So I don't think I immediately stopped, but it started the decline of being connected to God in that way. Shiloh really wants to be part of this episode.
Yeah, totally. I'm just letting it happen.
Yeah.
Because, you know. Um, Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense for sure. I think in most of the people I've met who something like that has happened, I feel like if it's still triggering, I feel like if it's still triggering, then there's probably something there still to mend. A, but B, I find it super interesting that the word God like was kept, right? And the word prayer had a weird like, no, I can't do that one. You know, like it's
Well,
just interesting.
the word God was not kept. The word God has come back recently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
Yes. I was for a long time, for many years, I was not using the word God very intentionally, would not use it in some of my I have a really, really good friend who also is a Christian, but she's a Christian more in the conventional sense, I guess, sort of. It's really hard to define my friends. They don't, not, nobody's like, it's like God is indescribable, so are my friends. Um, but I wouldn't even use the word with her, but now I'm like, it's the word she understands and what she relates to, so why does it matter? And if that, like, that's what I've coming more and more to, is like, especially in the work that I do, I'm a coach, so I'm relating to people in the context that makes sense for them, because it doesn't really bother me whatever word we're using. It all means the same thing to me. um So, but yes, there's probably some unresolved shit around prayer for me that I get to lean into.
I mean, I think it would be interesting just to see like what comes up around it. I mean, and maybe we'll do, you know, a different episode on all the things that like prayer can look like. Like I think when people um you know, are commanding energy or like are, you know, from a dark sense, like this is not something I would do, but like are, you know, quote unquote casting spells, like really all these things are prayer. Like the alchemical process for me and my understanding is the same. You're speaking a thing, you're using words to try and transform your reality, right? And there is a creative power behind that. That power I call God, right? Somebody else might call it something else. It might be a different God to them. It could be nature, but I think the power behind all the gods that everybody else is talking about is the God that I believe is God, right? So, like, maybe somebody is in nature talking to the trees, asking them for help, just in theory, right? I believe the power that exists behind the tree that is offering them help is God. Like that power is coming through a mediary and then being presented to this person from God, very similarly to the way like Catholics pray to saints. Like the individual saint has no power as far as I'm concerned. Like, don't come at me, but like, but he was a human, he or she was a human, right? Like, and that saint prayed to God, right? And so now I'm praying to them, right? There's some version of them that exists with God that can be an intermediary. Religions who have, you know, 10,000 gods, small gods, demigods, right? Like, oh, they're just doing what the Catholics do with saints, right? They're praying to this particular one for this particular thing because they're like specialized in this, but really, like they're the low level, you know, the CEO is the one who's controlling all the things, like all the power, all the energy, all the money. You know what I mean? That's what's really happening. So yeah, I think you can probably call it whatever you want, but you're probably already doing the thing is my point. You know, you're just leaning into whether you want to go back to some of the traditional things you did before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think there's some like intentionality behind it that I used to do that has been lost. Um that I think my being is craving for it to come back. Because while there were some messed up and shitty things that happened and has to do with humans.
Totally.
It never had to do with God. But it also I think motherfucker. Before we hopped onto this podcast episode, Zarina and I were talking about an epiphany that I was having, and I'm attributing it to the full moon. Because there is potent full moon energy yesterday and today. Um, I am connecting it all to this moment now too, and I'm trying to figure out words to describe it. Because again, what is God? Like we don't have language to describe all these things. And sometimes when I'm having these really big moments with God, like I am right now, it's not an easy thing to describe. But I'm seeing I never attributed the shitty things that happened to God. I have been angry with God, but I believe wholeheartedly that God can take our anger. He created it. Like, God is very willing to take on all of our emotions. I often say I trust the universe and I have feelings about it. Um, I also think that I have really, really, really high expectations for myself. And I have this gift, this part of who I am is just knowing stuff. Just know shit. Just know stuff. I don't know how I know it. I don't know where it comes from. My intuition, universe, God, like whatever you want to call it. I just know shit. I even have this tattoo on my arm. Um, it's Hebrew and it means female prophet. Just because like I just know shit. Um, and I think there's an element of punishing myself that has happened because I should have known better. Um, and I think cutting myself off from God and or prayer or whatever was part of that. And I don't have full words for all of that yet. Again, I'm processing all of this in real time, everyone. So I'm sure more will to come, but I'm connecting the dots right now to like, oh, even though there was elements of the stuff, the way that the church does prayer or whatever, there's elements of that that I never really truly resonated with anyways. So I like cut it all off as a way to be separate from what I knew, not like the black and white thinking that I was brought up in. I was trying to move away from that. So I cut myself off from all of it. But really, there are lots of elements of the things that I learned in church that were really beautiful and amazing to me. And now I'm starting to bring those back into my world, like using the word God again, like thinking about praying again, because prayer doesn't have to be this binary thing that I was taught. It can encompass a whole lot more and really connect to that deeper connection, knowing, openness that we've been talking about. I just haven't made all those connections again until now, which is probably part of the reason we're doing this podcast.
I mean, 1,000% agree completely. Like in a lot of ways, like it's a tool, right? So it's not good or bad in and of itself. It's how you use it, right? Yeah. So there was something you had said about you should have known better. Did you mean like you should have known better with the people who did the wrong things or that hurt you that were in the church? Is that what you meant? Where you should have known better?
I maybe I think that might be part of it, which is really easy to say outside of the circumstance years later. Um
Sure. Yeah.
uh Yeah. I don't know exactly. Because that's a phrase that I have said a few times today, which is why Zarina's pointing it out. And I don't know exactly why I keep saying it. It will be revealed. TBR, to be revealed.
TBR. Um, yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens when you start playing with prayer. Um, and if that changes your like definition, quote unquote, of God, or like how you would answer that question, I think would be interesting too to see.
Yeah, this might have to be like a recurring once a year topic. What is God? Has it changed since the last time we talked about it?
What is God Volume 2? um, so one of the things I was going to say as like part of the answer for what God is for me is like in studying religion, I had a professor who was a Christian mystic, and I tend to really gravitate towards Christian mystics because it like it touches the part of me that grew up Christian and they understand that, and also they have less of a box around the way that they look at the universe and the belief system and all of those things, right? And he also happened to be Hinduism teacher. And
Mm.
so he was using examples in Christianity, which more people were really familiar with, to help us understand the hierarchy in Hinduism, right? And so essentially, he was talking about how one God was the transcendental God, meaning like the God that exists always, like is the like the permeating, it's the very like the beginning and the end kind of feeling, right? And then there's the God in Hinduism that is the manifestation of God in life. So it would be like nature, it would be like the way God presents itself. It actually is a feminine God, that God. And so it is like creation embodied. And so obviously the feminine like takes the creative energy and creates a baby, and now that is like the manifest thing in the world, right? So anyway, long story short, he takes it back to Christianity and he says God the Father is very similar to the transcendental God, be like always God, right? And Jesus is very similar to the manifest God, the part of God that comes to the earth and then is the visible embodied creation of God, right? And took us to this verse, right? And we had a whole discussion about it. And I don't remember it like word for word, so I don't want to do it poor justice. But what was really impactful for me was the book of John has always been my favorite book, the entire Bible, right? Just bar none my favorite. And it opens with, huh?
It's a good book.
The Gospel of John. Yeah. It's a good book. It's also like when you read it, it's very devotional. It's like, it almost reads like this love story between him and Jesus, right? Like from a companion friend perspective. This is just a person I really love. Um, And I guess that just always resonated. Now, as an adult, like knowing what I know and what I believe, it makes a lot more sense. But as a kid, I didn't make as much sense then, but it just was. Anyway, the opener is about the Word. The Word was with God and the Word was God, right? And I mean, I don't know if you want to read it word for word, just but the word in its original Greek, the way it's written, the word WORD in its original Greek is the word logos. And the word logos means the manifest power of God, active on the earth, right? So it's talking about the divine power, right? The God power that allows the wind to blow, allows the grass to grow and be green, right? That is innate in instinctual with nature, that they know how to take care of themselves. They were never taught these things, right? Like the the part of nature that already is just like it would be like our autonomic nervous system. It knows what to do. Like the lungs know they need to breathe, right? The heart knows it needs to manifest God power that is the logos. And that, because the earth exists, because it is created, because it's like constantly evolving and breathing, and the cells are all moving and active right until they die, that is the part of God that is felt everywhere, right? And so when you walk out and I feel God in the flower, that's the part of God that I'm feeling, so to speak, right? When I realized that, it was like it all became clear. It was like, oh, okay. So now anything has God because it has creative power, because it exists on this earth. So because it exists and because it was created, it has manifest power, right? It has the power of God behind it. And that can be true across religions, across cultures, across everything, right? And that can be felt. And to me, that connected to the transcendental, unembodied energy, power, force, love of God is the God I feel. And I look at the world like this manifest power of God is how I get to connect to the transcendental power of God, because we're all embodied. I'm not embodied, right? And so this earth is created, and now this is how I get to experience that thing, because I needed a vehicle, right? But they are essentially one God, in my view, right? And so when I look at Christ, I have this like deep love and sense of connection and gratitude and grace, but not because he bled, not because he was tortured, although I'm grateful he sustained, right? But that's not where my joy comes from. My joy comes from, I look at him like, you showed us what is possible with God. You came and you were the way because you showed us what we were missing, like what was passing right by us in front of us that we couldn't reach, right? Like you are the embodied truth because you did the thing, right? Like you showed the thing, you lived it, right? Not because someone says I had original sin and I would go to hell if you didn't die, but because you gave me the greatest gift possible, which is the realization of how close to God I can possibly be, how real it can be. And he said, you will do all these things and more, right? And so as far as I'm concerned, I'm a Christian, but I'm not crying looking at the cross. I'm not like, oh, this is sad and horrible and all of these things, and I'm evil and he had to fix that because I'm evil, because they also said I was made in God's image, and if I was created, I have the creative God power within me already because I'm breathing, right? So in that frame, now the world gets to be magical. And someone asked me the other day, and then I'll stop talking, what if you died and you realized there is no God? And I said I would be totally fine with that. Because loving God, believing in God, being connected to God makes my life so much better, so much more beautiful, so much more magical. It makes my heart bigger. I'm able to feel people and the reality of like what is happening around me and hold it in a space like of love to the best of my human capacity in the moment, right? um, and I can't regret that. When do I regret that? There's no way. To me, there's no downside. There's only upside.
I'm just in awe of you right now.
I'll sit down and cry.
I'm already crying. Um,
But I mean, you know me, right? So you know my heart. Like, you know this is true, right? You know, we have these conversations regularly, but I don't know how I would live my life without being connected. Like, I have loved God for as long as I can remember.
yeah.
Like, I remember being a kid and asking Jesus into my heart, but I also remember sitting there in like Sunday Bible thinking like, yeah, okay, I'll do it because you're telling me to do it. But I've done this before. Like, what this has already happened. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I don't remember a time when that wasn't true, you know?
Yeah. I'm I'm in awe because of the way that you're able to articulate all of this is so beautiful. And it's things that I've felt, things that I've experienced, but have not been able to put words to. And the way that you just described it all was like, yes, that. And fuck, you're magical.
Yes, that. And that's why when he said it, it was like all these things clicked. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I just continued to like receive little nudges to remind me like, oh, here's another aspect of how that's true, or here's another way that is embodied, right? um and and I think that is really more accessible for people, you know. And that's why I just keep thinking like, I don't know how people navigate without that feeling, and how can more people feel the reality of that, and in a deep way. Like, I don't even care if you label it God. Like, I don't care if you subscribe to a religion. Like, I just want you to feel like the visceral truth of that energy that I call God.
Yeah. This is only semi-related, but I've been thinking about it for weeks and wanting to tell you and keep forgetting. Um, we were talking about earlier is the concept of um choosing, like choosing our parents, choosing what we want to experience when we're on earth. And um I think about Zarina and I both have said that this is not our first time doing this human thing together, right? And I kind of picture us preparing for this adventure and being like, okay, this about a third of the way through our up existence, we'll meet each other again, and then we'll do this whole thing. And there's like this part of me that like the little kid in me who was like, you mean I have to wait 30 some years before I get to see my friend again? What the fuck? And then there's the higher self is like, yeah, but you're only a third of the way through your life. Like, that's not
Totally.
more. Like, what are we talking about? I'm like, oh yeah, because time is a whole weird thing that we could do a whole other podcast on. What is time? Oh, um,
Totally. Yeah, that's
but
a whole other thing.
I think about that and then I giggle because I think it's funny, and I also am just really grateful that God brought us together again in this lifetime. And then it also gives me hope for some of the people I have not yet met in this,
Mm,
and
yes,
remembering
that.
that a third of my life, like it doesn't matter. It's all in perfect timing.
Man, that's gonna make me cry.
Good.
uh, I've don't even realize I've had this thought lately, but like um I went through like a more you know this just so I went through a more like cavey part of my life where I just like did not want to be social. And then I would get this like feeling like, no, I need to be social, right? And I would try and then it would not last. It was just like not sustainable. And I've been like feeling it again, right? Like this like go meet people, like go be out in the world, like go like not like not just like meet people to date, but like so old saying like rub elbows, but like go rub elbows with people, right? Like sit next to people in coffee shops, like smile at people, like be in the world, right? Like go interact in the world. And when you said that, like the trusting the people that you still are yet to meet, oh, that just hit me like so hard because I realized like, oh, that feeling is happening because there's people I need to meet. There's people that are waiting to meet me. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, like, oh, okay. Now I can trust that feeling and I understand like there's a um I mean not everything needs a purpose, but like there's a purpose underneath logistically.
Yeah, because like number of things that had to have happened for us to have met is insane.
Yeah, and obviously, like the story, but that morning, right? Because we met working in a coffee shop, like taking our laptops to a coffee shop and having lunch, right? While we worked. And we both were there within like 20 minutes of each other. I think I had only been there like 15, 20 minutes before you walked in. And that morning, I did not want to get it together to go work offsite, but I knew if I had stayed home, I probably wouldn't be as productive. And so, like, I said a little prayer and I was like, do I go or do I not? And I got this like deep feeling like, no, you need to go. Like, get out of the house. And I was like, okay, well, I might just need fresh air. Right. And then in walks Jess. And here we are. I don't even know how many months later, years later. 4. Did we figure out it was 4, 5?
So 4 years.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, and for those of you, we're talking like we're best friends because we are, and we have to remember that not everyone knows what we're talking about. But Zarina grew up in California and I grew up in Ohio, and somehow we both ended up in Portland. And that's the coffee shop that Zarina is talking about, is we went to this and we were both working from home. And at that time, we were living a 15-minute walk from each other. Like, what?
and how long had you been in Portland at that time?
Um, it was like January, so like 9 months.
Yeah. And I had been there like I'm not going to be able to do the math, like 7 months, 6 or 7 months. So we both were recent residents. And in COVID, when nobody was going anywhere, we were moving, right? Like
Yes, this was 2021. No, 2022? Whatever. I don't know anymore.
2021. Yeah. 2021 is when we would have moved. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Crazy.
fascinating. See, and even just that story, like even just that knowing all of the elements, like obviously it's my life firsthand, like that alone, gives me trust and faith in what I believe to be God. right? Because um of my own knowing, like I wouldn't have orchestrated that. I wouldn't have known to orchestrate that, right? There's just no way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Meeting some random person at a coffee shop, and all of a sudden we're at each other's house every other day.
Or even just like having moved.
Yeah.
Like I moved because I'd been praying about it. And I was like, I don't know why. I feel like I'm not supposed to be here anymore. Like everybody's looking at me like I'm crazy. Like, why are you moving 2 states away when you don't have a job there and you don't have people, right? And none of your family's there. And I'm like, I feel like I'm supposed to be in Portland. And the people who would understand, I was like, I prayed about it. That was the answer, guys.
So you had to come get me.
you know? Totally.
I'm so grateful.
Me too. Me too. Oh, team.
Oh,
Well, we're what, like an hour and a half in, an hour in?
I have no idea.
Something like that. Anything else we need to say about God before we end this episode?
I just really love this quote that Zarina sent me as Instagram reel a little while ago, and the quote is from Barry Taylor, is who was the road manager for AC/DC, and he said, "God is the blanket we put over the mystery to give it a shape."
Mm. So true. I love that quote so much. I think it just speaks volumes.
Yes, agreed.
Well, it's been fun. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yes, thank you for listening to another episode of Sacred Reveries.
Bye.